Hello everyone, Mario is back and has some news to share.
Yes, I'm sorry I was absent so long, but it was difficult for me to get into my dreams. I learned some interesting things, and know you have all been busy too. But before we can decipher more about the transmissions we received, I wanted to share the words of the Queen of the Aes Sídhe. With the Queen's wisdom, we answer one of the biggest questions we've had. What is the key? Listen.
Mario, I am sorry I cannot help you and your friends more, but I am just the residual energy inside your mind. I need to save this energy in order to aid you as much as possible before I am absorbed into you, like your fellow dream priests were. And while you were able to gain the power of your dream priest friends when you fought Raza, when my energy is absorbed, all my knowledge will be lost. And there is so much you need to hear. First, I have analyzed the transmissions. While I do not know who is sending them and how, I do know what the key is. It is so obvious. You must have had an idea. The transmissions echo from random spaces and times into the void, but the discussion, the mist being pulled apart, the random strange facts. It is like the person in the transmissions is also lost in the void, and is in a dreamlike state like you and your friends, but can somehow reach through those cracks. Only one thing has this type of power. Elder essence from the Master Realm. And what also has elder essence? The green ball, your random trophy. Clearly, this is the key. This is how you escape from the void, by unlocking its powers once more. You see, the void has been around since the beginning, alongside the Master Realm. It was the outside of the bubble. But when the realms split and multiplied, it stretched and split parts of the void to fill in the spaces in between. The portals created by the Elders usually bypass the void and go from one universe to the other. But the Elders have the power to go into the void, or to imprison whatever it wants to go into the void. Aes Sídhe's used the medallion to corrupt weak points, which in turn created unstable portals from old remnants of Elder magic. But the green bow was used against you, using the same Elder magic to send you all to the void. The closer we get to the Chosen One, the more the green ball starts to unlock. But until it is at full power, nothing will save you. But the closer it gets to full power, other creatures in the void will feel its presence, and will awaken to try to steal it for themselves. But beware, the transmissions mention the importance of the key, and of a darkness following. There is something else. Whoever is making these transmissions is clearly running, but also clearly split apart, just like how the void filled in the spaces. This tells me that a great battle is about to, or is already happening somewhere. And this being or essence that calls out to you, you must learn more. For if you unlock the green bowl too soon or without caution, the essence of the Elders has the power to both create and destroy. Balance needs both, and this means we cannot put full trust in the Elders. Instead, we as members of the Order of Light must make our own way, or the only way to bring balance could be the end of your universe, and the end of you and all your friends.
Dreamlands! 3 months have been played and just weeks remain before the playoffs begin. The season continues to fly by and has given us some wild results, but now we're in the final stretch, when wins mean everything. This is when teams fight for their lives with elimination scenarios. This is when division titles are on the line. This is when those final playoff spots are battled for and tiebreakers come into play. And when the dust settles, we will have 6 teams staying alive for a chance to be the chosen one and claim the Green Bowl trophy for the year. Of course, this is also when we get to flex a featured match to ensure we're watching the best ones. And with the American Void wrapped up, and the Asia Pacific Void looking like it'll go to week 14, we're going to stick with the European Void this week. That's right, in our next 6-6, low-key Lebowski Thor travels to London 2530 to take on 7-5 More Than Conquerors in a match that could shock the league. Lebowski Thor is trying to become the first team to start 1-6 to ever make the playoffs in this league. 5 straight wins for the 2-time champ also brings an outside shot at a division title still, which is absolutely crazy. More Than Conquerors has spent the most time in first in the European Void this season and has beaten Lebowski Thor once before. But this is different. A loss here would put More Than Conquerors into a potential buzzsaw for the final playoff spots, and also would put a potential divisional title into serious question. A win by Lebowski Thor puts them in historic company already to go from 1-6 to over 500. Even that hasn't happened in this league before. But it also could put them into playoff position. A loss, and the dream can be put on life support, depending on other results, obviously, certainly gives this one a playoff feel. And guess what? If Lebowski Thor does as expected and puts Alvin Kamara and Chase Brown back in the lineup with them back from their bye weeks, the computers say this is a 50-50 toss-up. And those backs will be in key spots. More Than Conquerors boasts Joe Mixon with a fantastic matchup against the Jaguars, also looking to bounce back from his worst game of the season. David Montgomery is in a revenge game against the Bears on Thanksgiving. Hurt shoulder or no, he will be looking to get into the end zone multiple times there. Brown goes up against Pittsburgh, which is actually not a horrible matchup, but the Steelers tougher on the passing game. Kamara faces a Rams team that was just decimated by Saquon Barkley. Jalen Hurts versus either Kyler Murray or someone off waivers will be considered a Lebowski Thor advantage. If the Eagles get into a shootout, Hurts could easily shake this matchup difficulty here. Murray goes up against a Vikings defense that just allowed a lot of points to the Bears offense, though. CeeDee Lamb is being limited by the Cowboys situation, but he gets a bad Giants team that should allow Cooper Rush to at least have time to throw bombs to Lamb. Tyreek Hill is due for a breakout soon with how Tua Tagovailoa is playing, but the Packers are not the easiest defense to throw on. They tend to allow more yards on the ground, something to think about. Marvin Harrison Jr. versus DK Metcalf is also a huge area, with Harrison Jr. canceling out Murray scores. Metcalf goes up against the Jets, but that team could be giving up soon. Tight end is pretty intense here. Taysom Hill was used a lot before the bye and had 3 scores in that game. He gets a Rams team that was torched by Barkley on the ground. Can Hill get 70-plus yard touchdowns? We'll have to see. Travis Kelce gets a Vegas team that is terrible on defense, but he has Noah Gray vulturing all his touchdowns lately despite getting the majority of the tight end targets. Tyler Bass versus Spencer Schrader or Blake Grupe leans Lebowski Thor. Schrader and Grupe have better matchups. And then there's the defense battle. The Denver Broncos go up against the Browns after they got an emotional snow game win.
Smells like a 3-interception game by Jameis Winston to me. The Vikings defense gets Arizona, that is not playing as well on offense like they did earlier this season, but obviously still capable of putting up a lot of points. Plus, More Than Conquerors did acquire the Vikings at the trade deadline, so they will be watched closely here. But there are 2 players that I'm truly interested in this one. For Lebowski Thor, I'm looking at running back Kareem Hunt, acquired at the trade deadline with More Than Conquerors in that Vikings defense deal. A lot to unwrap here, too. First, Hunt has started since week 4 following the Isaiah Pacheco injury. Pacheco is practicing again and is expected back this week, but Pacheco will be eased in slowly due to his injury. Hunt is clearly going to get the majority of touches in the first game Pacheco returns, right? He may still get goal line carries regardless. I mean, he is kind of a big back. Hunt has 5 double-digit fantasy games this season with 100 or more yards 3 times. He did get over 20 or more touches 6 times out of the 8 games. That's probably going to come down with Pacheco in the lineup. So that really is what we're talking about. How much does Pacheco take away, and does it matter if Hunt still gets those goal line carries, which might pad his score? Both backs might do well with a matchup against Vegas. The Raiders are tied for 19th against the team's running backs in fantasy football, but they've allowed 11 touchdowns on the ground to running backs. They've also allowed the lead running back to have over 70 yards 6 times this season and over 100 yards 4 times. But we have another interesting note, a lot of notes in this one. Hunt played Vegas before, and he's not one of the running backs on that list we just talked about. He was held to 59 yards at just 2.81 yards per carry. He did score a touchdown to salvage that game, goal line carries, that's what we're talking about. If Hunt still gets enough carries and finds the end zone, Lebowski Thor will be looking like trade winners. But if Hunt is limited again, and also loses too many touches to Pacheco, it could be the end of a dream of going from 1-6 to divisional champ. More Than Conquerors has running back Nick Chubb. We got to stick with running backs here. Chubb has been slowly working his way back after a terrible knee injury last season. I mean, it could have been career-ending how bad it looked. He finally came to life last week in the snow game against the Steelers. He had 20 carries, which is the most all season so far. He had 11, 16, 15, and 11 in his previous 4 games. He struggled a bit, though, despite the carries. So 59 yards, a 3 yards per carry average. But he also had 2 touchdowns, showing he could get the tough yards when you need them. That was Chubb's first trip to the end zone since week 7, which is when he debuted this season. And that's good news for More Than Conquerors, who are looking for a big boost out of the flex, especially with that Hunt trade. The problem? He goes up against Denver. The Denver defense, obviously, also on Lebowski Thor. The Broncos are 11th against running backs this season. They haven't allowed more than 35 yards on the ground to any running back since Derrick Henry dropped 106 in week 9. So they're on a bit of a stretch here. Besides Henry, only J.K. Dobbins and Kenneth Walker had 90 or more yards besides Henry. Dobbins was the other guy to get over 100 yards. Bucky Irving had 70 yards in week 3, and Najee Harris had 69 yards in week 2. No one else has cracked 60 yards. Even Breece Hall was held to just 4 yards. If Chubb reaches the end zone, it will be exactly what More Than Conquerors needs in a potential close match. But if Chubb struggles and doesn't score, it could spell doom. And it could also put More Than Conquerors into a very scary conversation. We're talking tiebreaker conversations for the final wildcard spots. I don't think anyone wants to be in that conversation, unless you know you're going to get into the playoffs, obviously. We do have some other intriguing matchups this week and a lot of possibilities with multiple teams potentially getting eliminated. Also, postseason berths could possibly be one as well. More Than Conquerors, of course, is one of those teams that could get a postseason berth with a win. We could technically get another division title clinch this week, too, if some things fall in different ways. But let's get to all of that. And the best of the rest. 5 Minerva's Minions hosts 5 and 7 the Clash at Demon Head in Rome 1890. The Minions clinch a playoff berth with a win or losses by Loki, Lebowski, Thor, or the Elite Mother Tuckers due to the potential tiebreakers left on the board. The Clash at Demon Head will be eliminated with a loss and a win by Lebowski, Thor, or the Elite Mother Tuckers. The Minions enter with a 69.3% chance to win. Jordan Love versus Patrick Mahomes will certainly be key, as will Jonathan Taylor versus Saquon Barkley. Kenneth Walker and DeAndre Swift have tougher matchups, but Amon-Ra St. Brown and George Pickens versus Jaden Reed and Jamison Williams will certainly be huge. The flex will be important too, with Bucky Irving going up against Brian Robinson, but that's if Robinson can play. In the American Void, 4 and 8 the Overcomers travel to Miami 29-35 to face 3 and 9 Air Jordan, and the season's on the line for the Overcomers. They need a win or they will be eliminated. Wins by Lebowski, Thor, or the Elite Mother Tuckers will also end their season. The Overcomers come in with an 80.3% chance to win here. Bo Nix versus C.J. Stroud, Jordan Addison versus Cooper Kupp, Derrick Henry versus Cedric Tillman. Those will all be spots to watch. Otherwise, it does seem to be all Overcomers in the projections. Tyrone Tracy will be interesting, though. The Giants' offense is slower than 12-hour marinara sauce and are a circus sideshow at this point. 8 and 4 Remember the Titans travels to Mexico City 1955 to take on 5 and 7 the Stellar Bitches. This game once seemed like it could decide the division just a few weeks ago. But the Stellar Bitches lost 6 to 7 since starting 4 and 1. Now Remember the Titans is going for a first-round bye, which will be clinched with a win. And there is an 82.4% chance that this will happen, according to the computers. Matthew Stafford or Brock Purdy versus Jared Goff or Joe Burrow not only brings decisions, but also brings uncertainty with those matchups. Jahmyr Gibbs versus Najee Harris, A.J. Brown versus Zay Flowers, which was a trade earlier this season between these two teams, and Jamar Chase versus Michael Pittman are all areas to watch. The Buccaneers versus 49ers defense is also on the side of Remember the Titans. Lastly, in the Asia-Pacific Void, 8 and 4 Pounders host 4 and 8 Green Acres in Beijing 31-45. The defending champs are reeling with a loss or wins by Loki, Lebowski, Thor, or the Elite Mother Tuckers, eliminating them and guaranteeing a new champion in 2024. Pounders needs a win or a Lebowski Thor loss to clinch a postseason berth and needs a win to stay in the race for the division title. And this is being called a 50-50 toss-up by the computers. Pounders needs to choose the correct quarterback here, as Josh Allen in there now. Green Acres might look elsewhere or stick with Russell Wilson with the matchup. That should be very interesting to watch. Christian McCaffrey versus Breece Hall and James Cook versus Rashad White seem pretty big to me. And then you got Nico Collins and Puka Nacua versus Jackson Smith and Jigba and Xavier Worthy. Those will certainly be key areas, with the advantage going toward Green Acres. Brock Bowers versus Jonnu Smith at tight end will also be huge. We also get 9 and 3 Risky Business, the new top-ranked team, versus the 6 and 6 Elite Mother Tuckers, with Risky Business needing a win and a Pounders loss to clinch the Asia-Pacific Void, or it's going to come down to Week 14. The Elite Mother Tuckers are surging at the right time, but need a win to remain in the playoff race with the loss to Lebowski Thor earlier this season. They have a 57.6% chance to get the upset here. Justin Herbert versus Baker Mayfield, Kyren Williams versus Devon Achane, and J.K. Dobbins versus Bijan Robinson all look like big spots. Mike Evans is back, though, and that means he and Justin Jefferson are huge advantages for Risky Business over DJ Moore and Devontae Adams. That leaves Tony Pollard versus Josh Jacobs and George Kittle versus Mark Andrews as huge spots for the Mother Tuckers. We will see how crazy Week 14 scenarios look, but we know at least one division title will be on the line in Week 14. There might be 2 on the line. We are expected to have a wild finish for the wild card spots, with 3 teams alive for 2 spots at least, based on where we're looking with tiebreakers. When the dust settles this week, all the clinching and elimination scenarios will be locked in, but any that involve tiebreakers could get crazy if it comes down to points, and it might. That's the show for the week. Hope you enjoyed it. Before you go, you should check out the updated standings and see where we're at with 2 weeks ago in the regular season. Until next time, salut.